Hello and welcome to the Real Estate Pro Radio Show. This is your host, Amber Arms, and we have with us today Cathy Rocks from Chatsford, PA. All right, Cathy. Well, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Cathy the person? We hear a lot about, real estate in the industry. Let's get to know who you are as a person.
I was born in Brooklyn and transplanted a couple of times, and I really enjoy cooking with my sweetheart, John. I love to get new ideas from the Food Network. I love seeing home interiors and trying to help my clients translate that into what that might look like for them. There are a few TV shows, HGTV shows that I really enjoy. One is Hillary Farr. Then we have the Napiers, the Moores, and the Gaines, which are all popular shows. And, I'm a big person. I believe I love self-improvement books. So I read a lot about, Atomic Habits was a recent book I read. And then Story Brand and Business Made Simple by Donald Miller. And I also love Mel Robbins. She's so comical. She has a podcast on Audible, and she wrote 2 books too. So basically, real estate takes up a lot of your time, both personally and professionally, because it kind of spills over into so many things that you do personally. There's not enough hours in a day to actually, I think, when you're doing a good job for your clients, I think that it takes a lot more time than what people think. For the showing, I show up and, we're in the house maybe a half hour, 45 minutes, sometimes longer, but that's not where it ends. There's probably 2 hours worth of research that goes into the houses that clients want to see. I always look at aerial views and things so that I really know what they're stepping into. And like I said, that there's so much education in that preliminary process, and then talking them through how to even structure their offer. It's many, many hours that the public doesn't see.
Indeed. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of time that goes behind the scenes. And, a lot of people are used to banker's hours, I like to say, the 9 to 5 times. But, with housing, it seems like you really have to be willing to do things out of the natural hours to get a hold of people around work and everything else, too, which definitely makes it interesting. I think it's really cool that, you spend time with your sweetheart making, different dishes and stuff. I also like to cook. So, it's definitely a pretty fun thing to do and see what you can create as well.
Mm-hmm.
But, so how did you get into real estate?
Well, that's kind of a long story. My dad was always interested in investing in properties, and he sold some properties himself over the years, and he did become licensed. And at one time in the mid-1980s, I worked for the Sands Hotel and Casino, and I had some various different positions with them. But at one point, I worked for a VP of finance, and that gentleman gave me a project, which I absolutely loved. It was go find us an office building that we can fit all our personnel that's not involved in the casino itself to, house them as office space, and then find flat parking that we could build a parking garage on, and then go find investors to help finance that project. And I had the best time. I learned so much about commercial real estate at that point in time, and it just was really interesting to me. And then fast forward, I had personally bought and sold a few houses, and in the early 2000s, I had a home that was under construction, and so I was pretty involved in the construction process. And then a friend started investing in real estate, and I think that's really what led me to get involved in real estate.
That's really fascinating. So, you really felt like that you kind of got a taste for it, in your previous job, and then you realized it was something you really enjoyed, so you kind of decided, hey, I should try this a little bit further and get into that. That's pretty beautiful, actually. A lot of people don't, they go to school and they don't realize what it is that they want to do until they actually get to experience it. So it's kind of cool that you were able to find, your calling, even if it was in a different job, it's still a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, my background was accounting, and that was kind of like by default. I started out in high school actually in sort of like a design. I was in a couple of classes that started to teach you design and engineering, and then I had all these big plans that kind of blew up, so ended up taking the accounting route as kind of like a default. And actually, I loved public accounting. It was quite interesting because I got to do people's tax returns and see inside their businesses, and that was the main thrust of my job. But what happened was, children come along, and you need something that's a little bit more family friendly. And so I just worked part-time at some different jobs, but I, was really ready for a change when the 2000s came along.
And when did you decide to be a real estate agent? How long ago would you say that would be?
That was 20 years ago.
Oh, goodness. You got plenty of experience under your belt now then.
So 20 years ago, and it's still fascinating. Every day is different because even in a development where their houses are the floor plans are similar, the orientation of the house, the way people have decorated the interior, the actual piece of ground it sits on, where is that located within the development, all these different things impact perceived value. And so I just, like I said, every day is so different, and it never really gets boring, honestly.
Yeah, you get those challenges that come along the way too, and it's like, oh, surprise! You weren't expecting me.
Well, yes, I try to know as much as I can prior to showing the house, but there's always things that come up, and I think experience helps you handle the things better. They might not exactly look like the last problem, but you've had some experience with dealing with broken sewer lines, failed septic systems, fences that are not, within the property boundaries, all kinds of things like that. And then just the structure of the house and its function, the age of the roof, and knowing, what type of shingles are on there, so the life of the shingles, and you can kind of coach your client into when you should expect to replace items or systems within your home.
Yeah, a home is the biggest investment that most people are going to make over the course of their lives, and sometimes they make that multiple times, and sometimes they only make it once, but it is one of the biggest investments that people end up making. So, having somebody that has the experience to be able to say, hey, here's the things that you need to take account in when you're, considering purchasing this or investing in that home, so that they, understand what they're getting themselves into.
I am with you 100%. That's my biggest thing. I probably have talked more people out of homes than, I would never talk somebody into a home, but I do try to give them the positives and negatives, so they're making a decision.
With everything on the table.
Right, that's it. And so, as far as, not only the location, but what's in the house, just like you were mentioning, it is their largest investment. They need to know what they're getting into. Do they have the finances behind them to handle the things that would be coming up in years like 2 and 5 and as things age.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny how you mention this. You know, my dad, he's actually a home inspector, so he gets to see homes all the time where, you know, people will come in and, you know, you'll have a new couple coming in on like an old stone farmhouse, and you essentially have to explain to them that, you know, this isn't a brand new house, and most of the stuff that's in here is going to require maintenance. Or, you know, you'll have some homes where it's completely brand new and you won't have to worry about things for, you know, 10, 15 years. You know, each client has their own ideas of, you know, what do they want versus what can they actually support versus what are they actually comfortable with dealing with, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It is definitely interesting on that standpoint, being able to guide people through which homes actually fit their lifestyle, you know, just.
Right. I mean, a lot of people fall in love with the things that they see, you know, the finishes and things like that, but kind of have to give them an education beyond that so they really fully understand the commitment.
100%. And, you know, you've been in the industry for a long time. You know, 20 years is quite a bit. You know, how would you say that the industry has changed over those 20 years? You know, we had the 2002s and, you know, through there we had quite a bit of changes in technology too, right? So how has that impacted real estate?
Well, when I bought my first house, that was out of an actual real estate book. We didn't even have real estate online. And so when I first got licensed, we had basically one picture in the MLS, and then we grew through to the online portal situation where it was by court order that we had to give the public access to all the listings, and that logically should have been just with Realtor.com, but then we had these other online portals that were selling ad space to agents, and it, you know, I think the other online portals that people get information from is not always accurate, but there is some. They have some of the information that's good. I always find that there's errors in taxes, there's errors in how they report the property, and, you know, some other things. I mean, people can search online, and I think what that searching ability has given them is there's less of a spring market, and now it seems like real estate is year-round. There's always people in the market. And from a standpoint of an agent, you can see to some extent how many people are in the market. We have statistics on like the number of showings on a house. And so those things help us actually be better at pricing ahead. And I don't know that, and you're seeing more information to compare so that your buyer clients can be informed as well as your seller clients.
Absolutely. And, you know, the past couple of years we've had, you know, this whole pandemic going on, and I feel like that's impacted a lot of industries, but, you know, how did that impact real estate like in the last couple of years, you know?
So interestingly enough, back in 2005, the number of sales that happened countrywide was close to or just over 700. I think I want to say it was 700 million. I had the statistic written down. But fast forward now, that number, after being a little bit lower through the years, like between, say, 2006 and in through probably 11 or 12, where the numbers were in like maybe the fours, now we're back. In 2020, there was 6.5 million homes sold, and in 2021, it was 7 million or 700 million. I think 7 million below, but that I'll have to check my actual data. So my point being is through a pandemic where we had shutdowns and masks and, there was more business done over that timeline than some of the years since 2005. And it was it's wild because the interest rates were supporting the increase in value, and there was so much pent-up demand because, see, back in 2005, in those years, people were using equity in their homes for other things. And because of the lending crisis and, we had investors speculating in the market back then, we had that kind of supported the negativity that happened in the marketplace. And people became more cautious and less willing to use the equity in their homes to fund vacations and things of that nature. So what happened over those next couple of years is the equity position in homes in this country has increased, and people are in a position to do something. And what we're seeing is the average length of home ownership was at 10 years for a while. Now, it's down to about 8. And what fueled that was people staying in position with their equity and not using it for vacations. And, if they used it to improve their house, that was a good use of money, but not to pay off credit card debt or things like that. So I think all of those things are supporting this pent-up demand. And then the fact that we now are using our houses and they need 2 home offices, and I need a place to educate my children. I mean, the function of a home has changed so much over the past 2 or 3 years that, it's changed the demand as a reflection of that.
100%. And do you see that continuing as we go, we're coming into a new year here in 2022. Do you see that continuing in the real estate market?
Yes. So the people that are the economic heads, I call them, people who were involved in real estate but look at it from an economic standpoint, they are forecasting that over the next 4 years, prices will increase conservatively 20% over that timeline. So somewhere between 4 and say 7% a year. So I think the big burst in prices has come and gone, but we're still going to see a steady increase in values over the next 4 years. And they say with the level of activity that's in the marketplace, we should be in this position where homes are selling quickly, we still have strong sales, and we're still going to experience some appreciation even if you bought today. And the reason why this is important for people to know is if you're a homeowner, you're a seller who wants to sell and take advantage or release the equity that they have in their current home, but they're fearful of the current prices. If they were to sell their current home and then move to a home that fits their needs better, they're still going to be in a position where I'm now putting that equity to work in another home, and there's a chance for appreciation over the next 4 years.
This episode is brought to you by We Insure Center of Chester Springs, Pennsylvania. With access to over 200 carriers, We Insure is ready to service all of your insurance needs for home, auto, business, life, and more. Simply call 484-207-6640. Again, that's 484-207-6640, or visit WeInsureCenter.com. Get your free quote today.
That's a pretty interesting way of thinking about it. You know, I've asked a couple people that question so far, and it's definitely interesting. You know, most people don't really consider the equity aspect of that, but I do think that that's definitely had an impact on, you know, just how much value people have in their homes today. And yeah, you know, you mentioned the pandemic has really changed, you know, what people value, what people need out of their home, and what that looks like on, you know, the everyday couple standpoint. So, you know, I think that it definitely has impacted the market a lot, and it does seem like it's going to change, or it's going to continue that way for 2022. What do you think about beyond 2022? You know, we're coming out of the pandemic, or we're heading in that direction right now. You know, what does it look like for 2023 or 2024 with the real estate market?
So as I was saying, for the next 4 years, we're going to see some moderate appreciation. And over that time, like that should come out to somewhere around 20% between today and the year 2026. You know, the average home had increased in equity like $57,000 over the past 2 years. You know, it's been crazy. So the demand is there. And so where we are from 2005 is this. Our population has increased. I don't even know the exact numbers. And with the population increase, we had also a slow in new construction starts, like say around 2010 and 2011. And so not an ample number of homes had not been built over the past 10 years. So there's a lot of new construction happening, and there's a lot of opportunity for people to actually, I can go buy a new construction home, and while it's being built, I could market my house, and then I could be in a position where I could possibly even maybe rent back from the new owner, so that the new owner is taking advantage of the sale price today and the actual interest rates today, and know that 6 months from now or 4 months from now, I can be in my new home. And that new construction kind of, that piece, if someone is able to take advantage of that, kind of helps the timing issue that a lot of buyers are having, where if I have to sell a house in order to buy a house, that's a tough deal to try to go buy a resale and time it so that I can actually have my home under contract and settled simultaneously. So if you have a second home, if you can actually go buy new construction, or we do have a vehicle where we have some investors available that could actually, a home seller could sell their home to a group of investors. Now, I don't know that the rate of return is going to be that great for them. I always think that they're leaving, even if it's 2 or 3% equity on the table, they're leaving a little something behind to entice the investor. But that could be a way for somebody to overcome the timing issue of selling and buying.
Would you say that is the biggest challenge your clients are facing in today's market? You know, just having the peace of mind knowing that they're going to have somewhere to go after they sell their home?
Well, yes, first of all, it's finding a house that will fit their lifestyle. So, for example, if you're the average person that's, say, 60 years old and you want to, quote-unquote, downsize, which probably doesn't mean necessarily a much smaller house, but just a floor plan that works. So I have a full master suite or a full primary bedroom on the main floor. I have great public space in that house. And you can find them in some new builds, but you can't necessarily find them in a house that was built around the year 2000 or so. And so the challenge is finding something that fits your lifestyle, and then the timing. And then if you're a buyer, especially young buyers, I'm competing with people in the marketplace that have all cash, or they have more cash to put down. There's competing offers. You have people waiving inspections, which I never recommend. I mean, it's just been a wild time for buyers, but there are a few things you can do to help your position, and it's an individual case-by-case thing, but we've helped buyers to look like cash and actually, take advantage of a non-contingent offer, which is another stumbling block when you need to sell and buy simultaneously.
And so could you just expound a little bit on, what a contingent offer is, just for some of our viewers that may not be, familiar with it?
So if you are in a perfect example, I have a couple, they're in a townhouse, they're busting at the seams, and, they need more space, but they don't have enough money to go buy new construction in the area that they want to be in. So they're looking at a resale, and it's not very expensive, but I do need the equity out of my home. I can't get my pre-approval to say that I can carry two mortgages simultaneously. So I have to sell and settle on my current property to be able to go settle on the new purchase. So if I'm selling a house that's in, let's say it's $300 I'm selling for, and I would be unable to carry the mortgage payment on that $300,000 house to get me to the $500,000 house. I can't carry that much debt with the current income that I have. So I have to sell the $300,000 house and be fully settled and receive my proceeds so that the house that I'm under contract with, I can actually then go to settlement on that one. And so that's really a contingent situation. So just really needing the proceeds out of your current home in order to actually close on your new home.
Interesting. And so, with the real estate market, there's been a lot of popularization of putting it on TV, and, people have a tendency to exaggerate things. What would you say is a common misconception that you see with clients coming in about the real estate market and how it functions?
That that's a question I'm not really sure how that I've ever thought of it from that perspective, but I will say this. So like if you look at every show on HTV, whether it's a half hour or an hour, puts in the mind of the buyer, if I can just go buy this house and I can, fix it up and it'll be ready to go. And they might think, well, TV's an hour, it's a month. But a lot of times what they don't consider is the cost of that project and managing that project to get to a place that you can actually make the home livable and something you want to live in. And so I think HGTV gives a buyer or potential buyer or even an investor like a false expectation about what I'm going to find in the marketplace and how much it's going to cost and the amount of time it's going to take to actually complete that project.
Interesting, yeah. So you would say that it kind of sets false expectations for what, coming into it. A lot of those shows, they don't show everything. They don't show a lot of, the behind the scenes negotiations and everything else too. So
right.
Definitely
and
makes
so
it seem
I
it's
think,
simpler.
Mm-hmm. They do simplify it for the fact that I only have so much time. But if you look at a home, and your dad probably speak to this pretty easily, you look at a home with termite damage and I got to replace, some structural elements, that's not easy to do, and it's certainly not inexpensive. And so I think, you have a lot of people that I have a lot of people that come to me and say, well, I want to buy a fixer-upper, and I'm like, they don't understand, like I said, more so I think the money, the cost of the construction materials, and if you're not capable of doing that work, what you're going to need to pay an actual qualified contractor to get that work done and have it be something that is livable.
Absolutely. And what would you say, we've talked a lot about the real estate market and some of the challenges that people have been facing. What would you say people should be looking for in a good real estate agent? Even just in Pennsylvania alone, we have several million real estate agents, in the state. How does a good real estate agent really stand apart from, the crowd?
Well, I think length of time speaks to someone's level of expertise and care and concern. And the reason why I say that is this. When the market is hot and homes sell quickly, people are enamored with the possibility of actually stepping into this role as a real estate agent, and they don't fully understand. In real estate school, they don't teach you anything about selling a house, and they don't really teach you much about the houses themselves. And so a lot of that is more of the on-the-job training, and it doesn't come to you in the way of training. You got to seek out those places to get that type of education. And so when someone's considering an agent, I think more so is they should look to get a personal referral, not necessarily look at online for all the online reviews, because I always look at online reviews for restaurants, and then I go and I'm really disappointed because it didn't meet my expectation. Whereas if you're talking to someone who knows you personally, they'll be able to give you a personal referral, somebody that they had a good experience with, and tell you exactly how that person operates so that you know what you're stepping into. Trust is paramount. And so as an agent, you have to be willing to always put your client's best interest ahead of yours. And a lot of times I don't see that happen because, you have people that will show a client a house and basically kind of talk them into it, and it might not be the right thing for them. So I think that trust, experience, a personal referral, and then that person has to be, have your best interest at heart and to be able to or be willing to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and have them understand what they're buying. And so I really think that comes more with experience than anything else.
Absolutely. And, it sounds like that, you've got a lot of experience and you really, keep people at the forefront of how you do business. If someone wanted to contact you to, maybe sell a house or, find a house in this crazy market, what's the best way for them to contact you or reach out to you?
So I always think if someone texts me on my cell phone, it's actually a little bit easier for me to respond to them right away, even if I can just say to them via text, I am face-to-face with someone right now, but I will call you back at this time, or I will text you back at this time. And so I always prefer that somebody go to my cell phone with a text message, and then if it's not really urgent, they can actually leave me a voice message, and then third is always my email. So my cell phone digits are 610-500-8255. 4750. And then my email address is thoserocks@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Cathy. I really appreciate you coming on to the show today, and I really appreciate your time. You know, I definitely had a blast talking with you, and it was a pleasure meeting you. So thank you for coming on.
I really enjoyed this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.